Hunting seasons are in full swing. After the season, hunters have a responsibility, and that is to fill out a hunter harvest survey. I'm Mike Anderson with the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. My guest this week is Chad Parent, Hunter Survey Coordinator. Chad, what is the value of these surveys?
You know, there's a lot of ecological values to these surveys that really benefit the Game and Fish Department. But, you know, the bottom line is that I think a lot of people don't value these as scientific pieces of information like I do, and that's okay. So instead, I want to appeal to a hunter's sense of ethics. We've got a lot of rules when it comes to hunting and being a sportsman. Some of them are statutory and a lot of them are unwritten. And the statutory ones we know about because if we break them, we'll get a visit from a warden. But it's the unwritten ones that I think are really important because they're not enforceable by anybody but yourself and your own set of personal values. Commitment to being a good hunter and a good sportsman doesn't just stop when you're out in the field. It continues on afterwards when you get home and you may get a survey from us. Hunter harvest information is the one piece of information almost every agency collects to provide this overall understanding of what wildlife populations are doing, because that's the information we use the following year to distribute harvest pressure for the game species. Back in the 1960s, we had response rates that hovered around the 90% mark. Over the years, they slowly declined, and in the mid-90s, we started to realize that for a lot of these really important surveys, our response rate was around 40%. And you know, if you're trying to use the data that you get from some of these surveys to inform management, you really want a little bit higher, or a lot of it higher response rate. And so in the mid-90s, we started sending out follow-up surveys for the first time, and that gets us up to the 60 or 65% range for a lot of our surveys on average. We survey everything, and we're kind of unique in North Dakota that we're a small agency that can be flexible and capture all of our hunter harvest for all of our seasons. Some of the seasons where it's more of a specialized hunter, so for example, the muzzleloader season, generally the research shows that you return your surveys at a lot higher rate. It's not surprising to get survey response rates beyond 80% from those hunters. And for us, we do want to hit that because we place a lot of importance on our harvest estimates. You know, we've been sending the same deer survey out for 50 years, and it's provided perhaps one of the best data sets in the country on deer harvest. But at the same time, there's a lot of new demands out there, like our biologists, if they have the ability to get information right away, access to that information is really important, and it's really valuable for managing the deer population. Traditionally, we can't really do that with paper surveys because the turnaround time on them is, measured in months and not days. Whereas with some of these electronic surveys that we would send out to your email, we can get 5,000 responses in a couple of days and have a really good picture of what the deer harvest looked like. And that's incredibly valuable to our biologists. So what that is going to look like for hunters this year is that if you're drawn for a survey, you're going to get an electronic survey sent to your email first. And if we don't hear back from you after a couple of weeks, we'll follow up with paper. For most of our seasons that are pretty big hunting seasons, you're going to get randomly selected for a survey, and that's by design. But also for a lot of our surveys, we just capture everybody. Our muzzleloader survey is small enough, we send a survey out to everybody. Our agency is committed to obtaining the best possible estimate for harvest that we can get. The one really cool thing though is that our research shows that we can get good data over the internet and meet this desired convenience that a lot of our hunters want to be able to fill these out online. Once a hunter fills out a survey and drops it in the mail, that mail comes back to us. They get scanned through a high-speed scanner and run through some software that digitizes each hunter's response into a digital piece of information. Each one of those surveys is then processed by me to verify that when they entered a 0, they meant a 0 and not a 6. Imagine somebody that they look up to. Imagine a sportsman that they look up to in their own lives. And when they think about what it means to be a sportsman, it's the people like their father, their grandfather, maybe their mother that taught them all of those unwritten rules that I talked about earlier. If you are somebody who aspires to be like your grandfather or your father, and you want to be a sportsman in their image, part of that is returning surveys, I think.
When you get a survey in the mail or electronically, make sure you do your part and fill it out. For Hunter Survey Coordinator Chad Parent and the rest of the staff here at the Game and Fish Department, thanks for joining us for this week's program. We'll see you again next week.